Hello, fellow detectives. Welcome to Unlocked, the official podcast for all things Nancy Drew by Her Interactive. I am your host, Tammy Tuckey, and this week we welcome voiceover artist Marianna de Fazio to the show. Welcome.
Hi, Tammy. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great. It's great to talk to you because it's interesting. You have two different characters. One's a kid and one's an adult female.
Yes, yeah. There is some fan movement on it that I've seen online, and someone has connected the dots that I am playing both characters.
Oh, really?
I am the little boy, that I'm Lukas and that I'm Lily. And I thought that was really interesting that people were able, from my vocal patterns, to be able to tell that.
And we're saying Lukas from The Captive Curse and Lily from Tomb of the Lost Queen. And I think Lukas has a really big fan base. A lot of people love him. I know I do.
I think that's great. Lukas is. I actually, when I was told that, I started to look a little bit online and discover that was true, and I was surprised, and I'm so glad because Lukas was a lot of fun to record.
How did you get that initial audition for that character? Because they must have been looking very, very hard for a character actor to present a voice that's like a 7-year-old kid.
At that time, I don't know how they do it now, but at that time, Her Interactive was putting out the auditions through a kind of a audition database that we have here in Seattle. And anyone who's a member of this nonprofit organization can receive these emails right into their inbox. So, and they can kind of, self-submit if you think you're right for something. So I must have seen it and decided that I had, I should give it a shot. And then I self-submitted and was called in for an audition and auditioned and then booked it after that. Actually, it was an in-person audition. I remember going into the room and they gave me some of the copy to read just in person. So that would have been probably my interpretation wouldn't have changed too much. And it's an interesting piece to note that I had studied German from, a pretty early age, and that I had lived abroad and moved to Seattle from Austria. So I was immersed in German-speaking culture, up until fairly recently before having booked the gig. So when I saw the German on the audition posting, I said, I can do that. I can definitely do a German dialect.
And it's not easy, the accent and pronouncing those words, because I'm German too. And I understand for other people, it's not an easy task to, be able to pronounce everything like that right away.
It comes fairly naturally to me, just because of having lived there. Now I can look back and say I wasn't exactly fluent, but I was definitely highly proficient at it. And it's, the dialect, the language, sounding native wasn't the problem. It was, grammar and things like that were harder for me. So it's a matter of learning the sound changes and the rhythm of it and all of those elements. And once you kind of have that, you can speak freely in it. I think they did keep directing me in that way, that he was kind of a troublemaker and not, certainly not snarky, but a little bit naughty. That was definitely influencing some of my recording.
But so cute. and of course, I want to say really quickly, we will be talking about spoilers, even though you had not covered anybody who was of the evil nature. But we did speak to somebody who played the bad guy in The Captive Curse. And just to keep it very, bland, just in case people are still listening without, skipping. But we were mentioning to each other that it was pretty, kind of creepy and scary that Lukas was kidnapped towards the end of the game. That really had not been done before, especially a kid. I was like, this bad guy means business.
Yeah. And I remember recording some of the the calling out for help and realizing that I was in a cave. So you have to understand that when we're recording, we're not necessarily told the storyline. We're given the copy and we're given a basic outline of what is going on. without spoilers though necessarily. And we have to create the circumstances on our own. So I'm like, I'm in a cave. I don't know really why or what's happening otherwise, and you sort of have to just create it in that moment. So I remember feeling, having to be scared and having to be uncertain, but I wasn't entirely sure why.
Wow. So even being in that reveal scene, you did not know who it was going to be. It was definitely not you. You knew that.
I knew that, yes. I don't think I did. And it's possible that they told me and I just didn't connect the dots, but but I don't think I knew. And they I think they intentionally try to not tell you, give you as little information as possible, I think. At least that was my understanding.
Did that make the enjoyment of playing the game all the more fun because you kind of didn't know who it was?
Well, I have to say I have played the game, but I use play in like the loosest sense because I'm not a gamer at all, and playing it, is more me just kind of being like, that's kind of cool, huh? Look at the graphics. I wonder where this goes. I mean,
You like the technical side of things.
Yes, and I just, so I wouldn't say that I played it to win or to even to find out the mystery. So there might have been some characters that I never saw. I mean, I definitely found my own characters.
And then we move from Germany to Egypt. What a big jump there. But you know, each setting is very unique for each of the games. So I really loved the difference again between them, but I did love how Germany was presented and in its like little small town area. And then Egypt is this vast land of sand and only a few people there, and Lily, of course. So when you got to audition for Lily, was there anybody else you technically auditioned for, or was it just her?
I think it was just Lily, and to be honest, I don't remember the audition. It's possible they just offered it to me after having done Lukas, but I may be wrong about that. That's probably not true. So I think it would have been just Lily. I mean, they would call me in for one of the younger women.
Again, it's kind of like that you are somewhat involved towards the end of the game. So again, did you get to find out who it was or any additional information while recording your last bits?
I don't think so. That was a very intense recording session because I was screaming in the tomb, screaming for help. I remember really having to physicalize it and create it. I mean, in the booth, you're sort of isolated. You can see the director and the sound engineer through 2 panes of glass, but otherwise it's just you and this equipment, and you're having to create this world for yourself. But I don't think I had a lot of details. I think it was a lot of just imagination.
Did you get any animation or visuals of your character, either Lily or Lukas, beforehand, or was it, you were basing it off of something that you saw, in your own mind when you imagined the character?
I think, if they had it, now you have to remember, I recorded these 7 or 8 years ago. So if they had any sort of renderings of the characters, they would have shown me. But I'm not certain that they did. And I don't think they had any animation on a laptop to show. So it would have just been drawings or something like that. Often if they have, they'll show you whatever they have, because it really does help in the booth to hear the music or see a little bit of the animation. But if they don't have it, they can't do that. And then it's just imagination.
Between the two settings, did you find one more appealing than the other when you were playing the games?
I would have imagined that I found Germany more interesting because it was familiar to me, being a sort of a Bavarian town, and they recreated it very well. But actually, I found because I already I'm familiar with that, I found the excavation site really interesting in Egypt. I just I thought that seemed realistic to me, and I liked exploring the tents and then in the tomb and all of the scaffolding and all of that. I thought it was really well done.
From there, did you get to audition for any more games, or what was the next project that you got to do?
I know I have never worked with them again, even though I do believe they are still local and still producing. But their pool of actors, I mean, there's so much talent in Seattle, voice talent and otherwise. And so they have quite a wide pool. So I'm sure they try to, keep recycle, and they try not to recycle the same people again and again and again. So I completely understand that. Since then, my career has has gone in a slightly different direction. I perform on stage mostly. I sometimes film and sometimes commercial, but less of that, just because simply there's less of that here, at least as far as I can see. And games and voiceover has actually gone more into a commercial route. So I've done a lot of internal Microsoft videos. God bless Microsoft for keeping Seattle actors employed. And so it's not as much games. I would love to do more games. And the character voices are really what funny voices as a kid is, I think, one of the things that led me to this career path. But it hasn't turned that way quite yet. So we'll see what's to come. Currently, I just finished a show at Taproot Theater Company, which is just a little bit north of Seattle, and it was a Paula Fogel show called A Civil War Christmas. And that was a long run over the Christmas, between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I played a little boy, which I thought was kind of interesting. That seems to be my thing, I happen to also be fairly petite, so I can do that on stage as well. And as long as I'm able to ride that train, I think I will. But it does keep coming up in my life. It's interesting that I keep being cast as a little boy, and I don't know why. So that just ended in the new year, and I'm starting rehearsals for another show down at Harlequin Productions, which is actually down south of Seattle in the city of Olympia. And that's an adaptation of a local novel called The Art of Racing in the Rain, which is a wonderful novel from the perspective of a dog. And I'm playing the wife. And other things that are ongoing is I now coach public speaking. And I have for a long time now, I've also been a dialect coach. So when there's a specific accent needed for a film or a play or even a game, then they will sometimes, if they're able to, call in a coach to learn the dialect and to teach the actors. So they can't assume that the actor will be able to do it or that all actors will be able to be consistent and be in the same world. So that's why they might bring in a coach. And so that has been one other thing other than acting that I've always done. And then that has expanded into accent modification for ESL speakers. So I really have a wide array of hats that I wear. And I think that's the way that I've stayed afloat is in this career, is to cast a wide net.
I was wondering, how many do you think you have under your belt at this point? Could you list all of them?
Well,
not to put you on the spot.
The RP, the British, for the most part, is under my belt. And that's partly because for 6 months or so, I worked at Harry Potter, the exhibition, while it was in Seattle at the Pacific Science Center. And we all had to speak in dialect the entire time when we were working. So there were months and months and months where I was essentially immersed in it. So anyway, that's one that I feel like I can recall. And from that, I can whip out a Cockney or, even a estuary, which is kind of the combination, fairly easily. The German, of course, I use a lot, and I coach that one a lot because people know that I have the language skills in addition to the dialect. Other ones I might have to refresh. Southern, you could do Southern, you could do the different kinds of Southern where there's the harder R's, or you could do the plant of Southern where there's the softer sound in certain areas. I don't think I have anything that most actors don't have. And the difference that I would have as a coach is that I'm able to learn a new one. So I'm about to learn Jordanian and listening to the sound samples and breaking it down into itty bitty little sound changes, using IPA or anything else, any other way that I can. And then, listening for the rhythm and then teaching that. So Jordanian, I've recently done South African, which is a difficult one. I'm also doing New Orleans. And these aren't ones that I could necessarily recall on my own, but I can learn it. I can learn it and I can teach it. So I did learn, I came to Seattle for my graduate work at the University of Washington. So I have my MFA from the Professional Actor Training Program up at the University of Washington. And that's really where I had, you had dialect seminars, and you sort of learned international phonetic alphabet, and you really learned to sort of dig in. And even if you never become a coach, that is useful for actors themselves and their own work, because so often you don't have a coach. You might just for an audition need to really quickly pull something up, and it's like, gosh, how do I find a native Jordanian speaker, and how am I able to learn it? So we learned how to learn. There is one more dialect and one other project that is coming up that I should mention because some of your fans might be interested. So it is it's a game that is multimedia. So it's not a game. It's a web series, and some of it is filmed live, but some of it is also animated. And it's called Chaldea. That's Chaldea. And my character has just been introduced, which is why I forgot about it. So I'm about to be doing more, I think, this coming year. And I play a Greek warrior princess.
Wow.
So really interesting, yeah. And it's very fantastical. I think a lot of influences by Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones has influenced it a lot. So it's that sort of thing, if that interests you.
Well, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. I have one last question for you, which is if you could describe your experience working with Her Interactive and being a part of the Nancy Drew universe using one word, what would that be?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say exciting. It was really exciting. They were so welcoming and they really guided me through, like I said, whatever information they were able to give me, they gave me. They let me explore. I think I mentioned with Lily, I was very physical in the booth, and that was something they were really excited about. And I just found them very welcoming, and it was exciting to be a part of it all.